The corporate scout ship Server held station in the frigid void, its advanced systems bathing the Monastery of the Quiet Mind in probing energy. For decades, galactic intelligence had dismissed the ancient, alien structure as a mere spiritual retreat, an irrelevant relic. But as its scanners returned data, an inexplicable, non-natural energy fluctuation pulsed from deep within the monastery's serene facade. Miles from the enigmatic monastery, in the sterile confines of a corporate intelligence briefing room, the consensus remained unchanged. An analyst presented their findings, categorizing the Monastery of the Quiet Mind as a low-priority spiritual retreat. Decades of passive observation indicated minimal external activity, no discernible strategic value, and an absence of any significant resource holdings. It was a footnote in galactic affairs, an architectural curiosity, nothing more. The powerful conglomerate had little interest in ancient philosophies. A sleek, covert shuttle, cloaked by an experimental stealth field, detached from the observer. Its approach to the monastery was swift, silent, and entirely unhindered. The ancient structure offered no conventional defenses, no energy shields shimmered, no weapon emplacements tracked their trajectory. The monastery's outer perimeter, a ring of seemingly decorative spires, was bypassed with effortless precision. Initial internal observations confirmed the same serene, almost naive lack of security. Monk figures were visible in the distant, brightly lit corridors, moving with unhurried grace, seemingly oblivious to the technological ghost that had slipped into their sanctuary. This was not a fortress, but an open invitation. Deeper within the monastery's labyrinthine halls, the covert team established observation points. They witnessed monks engaged in deep, silent meditation within sparsely adorned chambers. Their postures were ancient, their stillness profound, a stark contrast to the buzzing technology of the infiltrators. Sensors meticulously recorded biological data, noting unusual brainwave patterns that vastly exceeded normal sentient ranges. Yet, the readings were dismissed as artifacts of extreme meditative states, a peculiar but ultimately harmless facet of their spiritual practice. The monastery hummed with an almost imperceptible internal rhythm, radiating an aura of tranquil yet potent energy. The team eventually reached a large central chamber, the heart of the monastery. Here, the serene facade shattered. Monks sat connected to colossal, pulsating crystalline structures that pierced the chamber floor and ceiling, glowing with an eerie, internal light. The air itself vibrated with an unseen force. Ambient energy readings spiked dramatically, overwhelming standard corporate sensors, pushing them past their operational limits. The data streams became a chaotic torrent of impossible numbers, a furious storm of unknown energies that defied classification. A faint rhythmic hum, a deep, resonant whisper, permeated the chamber. It seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere at once, a sound that bypassed the ears and settled directly into the mind, causing a profound sense of disorientation. Subtle visual distortions shimmered at the edges of perception, the very space around the crystals seeming to warp and undulate. This was not simply meditation. It was a process of immense, incomprehensible power, an ancient engine operating at the very limits of reality, leaving the advanced corporate instruments and their unseen operators in a state of growing dread. Within the central chamber, the corporate unit's most sensitive temporal sensors pulsed, attempting to parse the inexplicable energy emanating from the crystalline structures. What they registered defied all known physics. Localized, minute temporal distortions shimmered around the ancient crystals, flickers of time itself bending and wavering. These fluctuations were too small to cause any discernible impact on the immediate environment, too subtle for the naked eye. Yet, their presence was undeniable, a persistent, impossible anomaly that sent a ripple of scientific confusion and wary intrigue through the covert observers. Standard protocols demanded a rational explanation, but the data offered none. It merely presented an undeniable truth that challenged fundamental understandings of reality. The relative calm shattered without warning. A colossal surge of psychic energy erupted from the meditating monks, a wave that slammed into the corporate team's hidden instruments, overwhelming their dampeners. The crystalline structures flared with an internal violet light, vibrating with an intensity that threatened to fracture their ancient forms. For a fleeting, horrifying moment, distorted, phantom images coalesced within the chamber, flickering like ghosts from a nightmare. A city consumed by impossible fire, a void filled with skeletal starships, a twisted, inhuman visage. Then, as quickly as they appeared, they vanished. The psychic backlash, however, was profound. It wasn't a physical attack, but a direct, non-physical assault on the senses. The minds of the observers were momentarily engulfed by a torrent of alien thoughts and sensations, a dizzying rush of profound sorrow, immense effort, and a chilling, predatory focus that left them disoriented and profoundly terrified. Back in their hidden observation post, the corporate team grappled with the aftermath. Their advanced data recorders, designed to capture and process every minute detail, now displayed inexplicable corruption. Key sensory data, particularly from the moments of the psychic surge, had been inexplicably erased or scrambled beyond recovery. Attempts to restore the files failed, met with an unseen, unyielding resistance. It was as if an unknown force had actively intervened, selectively purging information. This wasn't a system malfunction. It was a deliberate, or at least profoundly powerful, act of technological interference. The monastery, once thought to be a soft target, was proving to possess an impenetrable defense, not of armor or shields, but of an unseen will that rendered even the most sophisticated espionage tools impotent. Frustration mounted, quickly giving way to a chilling realization. They were outmatched, their technology useless against this unseen power. During a subsequent period of relative quiet, the corporate team's refined temporal sensors began to detect something new, something far more unsettling than mere energy surges. Faint, almost imperceptible, echoes flickered into existence within the central chamber. These were not energy signatures, but residual temporal anomalies, brief, ghostly imprints of events or objects that, by all rational metrics, should not exist. They were fragments of alternate realities, momentary glimpses of timelines that had never unfolded, or perhaps had been unmade. One sensor trace suggested a ship of unknown design, another a specific atmospheric composition that had no place in their reality. These echoes were temporal fingerprints, non-existent phenomena subtly bleeding into the present, hinting at a profound, cosmic violation that defied all understanding. The sensation was eerie, scientifically baffling and deeply unnerving. The accumulated data painted a picture far removed from their initial arrogant assessment. The Monastery of the Quiet Mind was not merely a spiritual retreat. It was a nexus of unknown, immense power, a site of profound temporal anomaly. The corporate team's mission objective shifted dramatically. Simple reconnaissance was obsolete. Their dismissive stance had crumbled under the weight of impossible truths. This was no longer about corporate espionage. It was about understanding an existential enigma. A new sense of urgency permeated their hidden post, replacing prior overconfidence with a grim, dawning realization. The monks were not just meditating. They were actively engaged in something far greater, a silent war that the galaxy was utterly unaware of. The time for observation was over. The time for profound reevaluation, and perhaps a more aggressive investigation, had begun. The Monastery of the Quiet Mind, a place once dismissed as merely spiritual, now pulsed with an energy that defied all prior categorization. From the central chamber, a coordinated psionic surge erupted, far eclipsing any previous energy spike. It was not a gentle emanation, but a focused, almost violent ripple that tore through the ambient silence. The ancient crystalline structures, previously glowing with a soft internal light, now blazed with an unbearable intensity, their facets vibrating with a hum that resonated deep within the bone. Each monk, connected to these conduits, was a nexus of raw power. Their bodies, once serene, now showed undeniable signs of extreme exertion. Muscles tensed, veins prominent, and subtle tremors running through their forms. The air itself crackled, not with electricity, but with pure, unbridled psychic force, transforming the chamber into a crucible of unimaginable power. This was not meditation. This was an act of war. As the psionic surge reached its terrifying peak, the very fabric of space-time within the central chamber began to distort. A localized field of temporal flux shimmered into existence, a swirling vortex of impossible colors and shifting perspectives. Within this maelstrom, fleeting glimpses of other times and places flickered into view. A burning cityscape from a forgotten era, a serene alien forest that had never been, the cold void of deep space fractured by unseen forces. And then the impossible occurred. From each monk, a transparent ethereal form detached, a luminous silhouette that was unmistakably their consciousness. These spectral figures, imbued with the raw energy of the crystals, launched themselves into the swirling temporal field, vanishing into the chronoscape as effortlessly as a stone skipping across water. Their physical bodies remained, still, strained, yet empty, leaving behind a profound sense of scientific disbelief and existential confusion. In the wake of the projection, residual energy signatures lingered within the central chamber, allowing advanced corporate sensors a momentary, terrifying insight. For the first time, a clear target signature was detected, a faint paradoxical energy imprint that defied all known physics. It was not a natural phenomenon, nor a conventional weapon signature. This was an echo, a ghost from a reality that no longer existed, a temporal anomaly that had no right to persist in the current timeline. Its presence was a violation, a persistent whisper of a dead future attempting to reassert itself. The monks were not merely observing. They were cosmic janitors, hunting down these temporal infringements, these fragments of non-existence, to prevent them from unraveling the delicate balance of the living universe. The profound implications sent a chilling dread through the observers. The temporal field around the monks suddenly convulsed, then snapped back with the force of a cosmic rubber band. The ethereal projections of consciousness materialized, snapping back into their physical vessels with an audible, yet non-physical, thump. The monks' bodies, though still visibly drained, relaxed. Simultaneously, the paradoxical echo's signature, which had briefly registered on the corporate sensors, vanished. Not merely faded, but erased. All space-time records, all temporal data, showed no trace that it had ever existed. It was a surgical removal, a complete and irreversible eradication from the fabric of reality. The efficiency of the act was horrifying, a testament to a power that did not merely destroy, but minutely command. The relief of a successful hunt was overshadowed by the chilling realization of what these monks were truly capable of. The corporate team, observing from their hidden vantage, finally grasped the full, terrifying truth. The Monastery of the Quiet Mind was not a benign spiritual retreat. It was a fortress, a frontline in a silent cosmic war. The monks were not meditating. They were psychic demigods, engineered to be the galaxy's last line of defense against an existential threat that defied conventional understanding. Their mission was not enlightenment, but eradication. Every act of meditation was a projection, a hunt, a battle fought across the impossible terrain of space-time. The previous dismissal of this location as low priority now felt like an act of catastrophic arrogance. The monastery was a critical defense point, its inhabitants burdened with the impossible task of preserving reality itself. A profound sense of responsibility, mixed with awe and dread, dawned upon the observers. The corporate analysis continued, dissecting the minuscule biological signatures intercepted during the infiltration. What emerged from the torrent of data was a profound and unsettling truth. The monks of the Quiet Mind were not merely individuals who had achieved extraordinary meditative states through rigorous discipline. Their very genetic code bore the hallmarks of deliberate alteration, markers for neural pathways and psionic glands far exceeding any natural evolutionary progression. They were not simply gifted, they were engineered psychics, bred for a singular, terrifying purpose. This revelation sent a chill through the corporate team, shifting their perception from awe to a more complex blend of scientific intrigue and ethical unease. The implications of such a program, of creating demigods for an unknown end, were staggering. Further investigation turned to the strange, pulsating crystalline structures at the heart of the monastery. These were no mere ceremonial objects. Advanced spectroscopic analysis and energy flow tracing confirmed their role. They were psionic amplifiers and temporal conduits, intricate pieces of technology seamlessly integrated into the very architecture of the ancient facility. Their composition hinted at an origin far predating known galactic civilizations, suggesting they were remnants of an ancient, possibly alien, species. These crystals acted as a matrix, drawing in and focusing the monks' immense psychic energies, transforming raw mental force into a directed, temporal vector. They were the key, the fulcrum upon which the impossible act of consciousness projection was balanced. The true miracle, or horror, lay in the process of consciousness projection itself. Intercepted neural resonance patterns, combined with temporal energy fluctuations, allowed the corporate team to piece together a theoretical model. A monk's conscious thought, amplified by the crystalline matrix, would detach from its physical body, becoming a non-corporeal temporal probe. This was no mere astral projection. It was a deliberate act of trans-dimensional travel, a mind venturing into the raw, unformed fabric of space-time. The data also revealed the immense mental strain involved, the constant battle against the chronoscape's chaotic forces, and the ever-present risk of permanent disassociation. A mind lost forever in the temporal void. An existential oblivion far worse than death. Holographic simulations, constructed from the residual temporal data, attempted to visualize the chronoscape that the monks navigated. It was a chaotic, multi-dimensional ocean, a swirling vortex of intersecting timelines, nascent futures, and collapsing pasts. Within this maelstrom, the monks, projected consciousnesses, moved with impossible precision, like spectral predators in a boundless, liquid universe. They were not blindly exploring, they were hunting. Each projection, a focused spear of pure thought, would seek out specific, anomalous signatures, the faint, discordant resonances of the paradoxical echoes that violated the natural order of the cosmos. It was a navigation of sheer will and engineered psychic power, a feat no conventional pilot or explorer could ever hope to achieve. Once an echo was located, the hunt culminated in an act of terrifying efficiency, psychic weaponry. The monks, projected consciousnesses, now focused instruments of destruction, would unleash targeted psionic blasts. These were not explosions in the conventional sense, but surgical strikes designed to destabilize and collapse the paradoxical anomaly from its very foundation. The erasure process was complete and irreversible, a precise removal from the temporal fabric itself, leaving no trace. A localized temporal snap would occur, and the echo, once a persistent threat to reality, would simply cease to have ever existed. The monks did not merely neutralize, they unmade, demonstrating a power over existence that was both awe-inspiring and profoundly unsettling. The corporate team's analysis hub hummed with a new, somber intensity. What had once been a mission of corporate espionage was now a desperate scramble to comprehend an existential threat. The data streams, once dismissed as anomalies, coalesced into a terrifying truth. The paradoxical echo. It was a persistent temporal anomaly, a ghost in the machine of reality. Not merely a glitch, but an object, an event, or even a fragment of a being, ripped from a timeline that had ceased to exist. Its continued, impossible presence threatened to unravel the very fabric of the current, living, timeline. Holographic models projected the horrifying concept. A stable reality, depicted as a vibrant, intricate tapestry, began to fray at the edges, pulled apart by an external, ghostly influence. Abstract representations showed dead, data attempting to overwrite, live, data, a cosmic cancer seeking to reassert itself, threatening to collapse the present into an unimaginable void. In the central chamber, the corporate team risked closer observation during another intense projection cycle. Their advanced sensors, now finely tuned, managed to briefly tap into residual data from the dead timeline, the source of these horrors. What they witnessed was not a theoretical construct, but a visceral, horrifying glimpse into a reality consumed. Flickering, distorted images flashed across their auxiliary screens, burning worlds, not from stellar flares, but from an internal, destructive force. Shattered fleets, not from conventional warfare, but torn asunder by something incomprehensible. A cosmos bleached of life, a vast emptiness where stars should have been. It was a vision of utter cosmic devastation, a reality devoured by a catastrophic event so profound it echoed through the very structure of existence. The psychological horror of the dead timeline was overwhelming, forcing the unseen observers to recoil from the sensory input, their minds struggling to process the scale of the catastrophe that had spawned the echoes. The true enemy was not merely a paradox. It was the past itself, a dead future fighting for a second chance at being. Back in the analysis hub, the data painted an increasingly grim picture. The manifestations were escalating. Analysis confirmed a rapid, exponential increase in the frequency and intensity of paradoxical echoes. What had once been rare temporal ripples were now a growing cascade. Consequently, the monks' projections, once measured and deliberate, were becoming more frequent, more strenuous, pushing the engineered psychics to their limits. Observation footage of the meditating figures showed subtle but undeniable signs of fatigue. A deepening of lines around their eyes, a slight tremor in their concentration. Graphs displayed an alarming upward curve in echo detections, indicating that the dead future was fighting back with renewed vigor, its ghostly tendrils reaching ever further into the living timeline. The unspoken question hung heavy in the air. How much longer could the monks hold the line against an enemy that defied time itself? The nature of these threats proved as diverse as they were terrifying. Holographic projections categorized the various types of paradoxical echoes. They ranged from subtle temporal glitches, causing minor perceptual distortions and fleeting sensory anomalies, to full-blown physical manifestations. Flickering artifacts that defied logic, ghostly ships that phased in and out of existence, and most horrifyingly, distorted, inhuman faces that briefly coalesced from temporal static before vanishing. These were fragments of beings, entities from the destroyed future, seeking to anchor themselves in the present. The most dangerous echoes were the sentient ones, remnants of consciousness that carried the destructive intent of their dead timeline. These were not just temporal anomalies. They were potential invaders, each one a harbinger of the chaos that could unravel reality itself. The implications were now devastatingly clear. The corporate team fully understood that the monks were not merely correcting temporal anomalies. They were preventing a catastrophic temporal collapse. These echoes were not just scientific curiosities or minor distortions. They were existential threats to all known reality. Failure was not an option, for failure meant the destruction of their own timeline, a fate mirroring the cosmic horror that had befallen the dead future. A holographic projection in the hub depicted a timeline, vibrant and alive, slowly fracturing and dissolving, consumed by encroaching temporal voids. The faces of the corporate team, once arrogant and dismissive, were now etched with fear and a profound understanding. The monks were not just protecting their isolated sanctuary. They were protecting our entire reality from being erased. The question now was not if the dead future would claim them all, but when and what action the corporate spies, now witnesses to cosmic horror, would take. The Monastery of the Quiet Mind, once a benign enigma, revealed itself as a crucible of perpetual effort. Deep within its central chamber, the cycle of the monks, existence unfolded with relentless precision. Time-lapse observations documented an almost constant rhythm. The surge of psionic energy, the ethereal departure of consciousness, the brief, strained physical repose, then the swift, inevitable return to projection. Minimal rest was taken, barely enough to sustain their engineered forms. Their dedication was absolute, a profound, unwavering commitment, etched onto their features. Though subtle signs of fatigue often shadowed their eyes and lined their ancient faces, there was no break in their resolve, no hesitation in their grim duty. They were the eternal guardians, and their vigil was unending. Yet, this ceaseless dedication came at an immense cost. Advanced bioscanners, now meticulously tuned by the corporate unit, revealed the grim reality of their sacrifice. Within the monks' bodies, cellular degradation was accelerated, their tissues showing signs of strain far beyond their chronological age. The constant traversal of the chronoscape, the violent tearing and reknitting of their consciousness from the temporal fabric, was slowly, inexorably breaking down their engineered physiology. Their formidable power was a double-edged sword, carving not just echoes from existence but also vital years from their own lives. They were self-sacrificial heroes, enduring immense, unseen suffering, each projection a step closer to their own final, quiet dissolution for a galaxy that remained oblivious. From the corporate analysis hub, a stark holographic timeline unfolded, revealing the true scope of the monks' silent war. Countless temporal anomalies, once fleetingly detected by distant, uncomprehending sensors, were now meticulously categorized. They were instances where major paradoxes had flared into existence, threatening to unravel star systems, to rewrite galactic history, only to vanish abruptly, leaving no trace. Each vanished threat was an unseen victory, a cosmic catastrophe averted by the monks' relentless interventions. The galaxy, bustling with its own petty conflicts and grand expansions, had been saved untold times from existential threats it never even knew existed. The true heroes were the silent ones, battling oblivion in the shadows. The profound realization settled upon the corporate unit with the weight of cosmic shame. The entire galactic union, with its proud fleets and advanced civilizations, remained utterly ignorant of the silent war being waged at the very edge of their reality. Their previous dismissal of the Monastery of the Quiet Mind as a low-priority spiritual retreat now seemed an act of catastrophic arrogance. While galactic empires vied for resources and political dominance, these monks, these engineered demigods, bore the burden of universal preservation. The contrast was stark, terrifying. Images of vibrant, unaware galactic cities pulsed on their screens, juxtaposed with the monks' strained faces, fighting a battle no one else perceived. The galaxy slept, oblivious, while its true protectors fought for its very right to exist. The choice, once an ethical dilemma, was now a stark imperative. The corporate unit's original espionage mission, once paramount, dissolved into irrelevance. Their advanced technology, their strategic minds, their very purpose, pivoted with absolute finality. They would abandon their mission of corporate intelligence. Instead, they would find a way to aid the monks, to support their unending vigil. The survival of the Echo Hunters was not merely a matter of interest. It was paramount to the survival of their own reality, of every star, every civilization. The monastery, once a target of infiltration, transformed in their minds into a beacon of hope, a frontline fortress in a war they now understood must be fought, and won, at all costs. The corporate unit, once an instrument of calculated intrusion, now stood at a precipice of unprecedented decision. Their hidden observation post, typically a hub of detached analysis, became a silent chamber of debate. No longer was the mission about exploiting a perceived weakness or acquiring technology. It was about the survival of their own reality. The question was not if they should make contact, but how. The sheer, unfathomable power wielded by the monks, coupled with the existential burden they carried, demanded a shift in approach. Diplomacy, not deception, was the new currency. The team meticulously formulated a plan for peaceful contact, acknowledging the monks' profound capabilities and the shared, cosmic threat. Their advanced analytical capabilities, once tools for espionage, would now be offered as assistance, a gesture of alliance rather than intrusion. The looming silhouette of the Monastery of the Quiet Mind, once a target, now represented a fragile bastion against oblivion, a fortress they desperately needed to reinforce. A single, focused transmission pulsed from the corporate unit's hidden position, a meticulously crafted message of peace and an unequivocal offer of assistance. It was sent not as an intrusion, but as a plea, acknowledging the monks' silent war. Within the central chamber, the meditating figures remained outwardly still. No verbal response echoed through the ancient halls. No physical movement betrayed their awareness. Yet, the intricate psionic energy patterns emanating from the crystalline structures subtly shifted, a ripple across the chronoscape that spoke volumes. The monks had detected the intrusion from the very beginning, their senses far more acute than any conventional scanner. This subtle, yet profound acknowledgement confirmed their long-standing awareness, hinting at a wisdom that spanned not just space but time itself. The silence was not ignorance, but a deliberate, measured response from beings who understood stakes far beyond mortal comprehension. A single monk detached from the central formation, his movements slow and deliberate. He approached an ancient, ornate archway, its surface etched with symbols that pulsed with faint, internal light. Without a word, without a glance, he extended a hand, a silent gesture toward a secluded chamber beyond the arch. It was an invitation, a cautious acceptance of the corporate unit's plea. Within the chamber, the air hummed with dormant energy. Not the raw power of the central nexus, but a resonant echo of accumulated knowledge. Ancient texts, illuminated by an ethereal glow, rested on polished pedestals, while holographic records flickered to life, depicting a long-forgotten history. It was the beginning of a revelation, the true chronicle of the Monastery of the Quiet Mind, and its terrifying sacred purpose. The weight of centuries of cosmic defense settled upon the corporate unit, a profound privilege in the face of impending doom. The holographic records unfolded a tragic epic. Millennia ago, a progenitor species, now long extinct, had peered into the temporal abyss and witnessed a future consumed by an unimaginable catastrophe. Their own timeline, vibrant and flourishing, was destined to be erased, becoming a dead timeline. In a desperate last-ditch effort to preserve any reality, they engineered the first psychics. These were not mere meditators, but living conduits, beings purpose-bred for the impossible task of navigating and policing the chronoscape. The Monastery of the Quiet Mind was their ultimate creation, a temporal anchor, a fortress built not of stone and steel but of consciousness and intent. It was designed to be the nexus from which the Echo Hunters would launch their eternal vigil, a sacrificial legacy passed down through generations, all to save a future that was not their own from a past that refused to die. The implications of the progenitor species, sacrifice of the monks, inherited burden, settled heavily upon the corporate unit. Their initial mission, once a pursuit of corporate gain, now felt utterly trivial. The vastness of the threat, the silent, relentless war being waged by these engineered psychics, demanded a response beyond mere observation. With a newfound resolve, the corporate team pledged their full technological and strategic support to the monks' cause. Their advanced analytics, their logistical prowess, their understanding of galactic dynamics, all would be dedicated to this greater conflict. In response, a subtle yet palpable wave of psionic communication emanated from the monastery, a non-verbal affirmation of acceptance. The unlikely alliance was forged, a unity against an existential threat that transcended species, ambition, and history. The silent war had found new, powerful allies, poised to defend reality itself. The corporate headquarters, once a bastion of calculated espionage, now pulsed with an unfamiliar urgency. Having witnessed the silent war waged by the monks, the corporate unit faced a new, far greater challenge, convincing a complacent galaxy of an existential threat it could not comprehend. Initial attempts to transmit their findings to the Galactic Union were met with immediate, almost condescending dismissal. The concept of paradoxical echoes from a dead timeline was deemed fantastical, a product of isolated, perhaps deluded, observation. Holographic projections of flickering temporal anomalies and theoretical models of collapsing realities were waved away as speculative fiction. The Union's leaders, steeped in centuries of conventional warfare and political maneuvering, could not fathom an enemy that was not physical, an adversary born of time itself. Frustration mounted, an urgent dread that the galaxy, in its arrogance, was condemning itself to oblivion before the true fight had even begun. The Grand Council Chamber, a spectacle of alien architecture and political power, hummed with a different kind of tension. The corporate unit, now backed by the monastery's indirect psionic resonance, presented their findings directly. No longer were they mere spies. They were heralds of a doom the galaxy had unknowingly skirted. Irrefutable data streamed across the central holodeble. Precise temporal signatures of echoes, corroborated across multiple, previously inexplicable galactic anomalies. Terrifying simulations painted a vivid picture of temporal collapse, showing star systems unraveling, civilizations blinking out of existence, all triggered by a single, unaddressed paradox. Images of the dead timeline's utter devastation, fleeting but visceral, flickered across the screens, eliciting gasps and a dawning horror among the assembled delegates. The council members, their faces etched with a fear rarely seen, were forced to confront a truth more profound and terrifying than any conventional enemy could present. The era of comfortable skepticism was over. Across countless star systems, the Galactic Union began to stir. The initial disbelief had given way to a reluctant, then decisive, mobilization. Fleets, once designed for interspecies conflict, now adapted their formidable technology for an enemy beyond comprehension. Engineers frantically worked to integrate temporal dampeners into starship hulls, to weaponize chronal distortion fields, to build detection arrays capable of sensing the faintest temporal ripple. The Monastery of the Quiet Mind, once a forgotten speck in deep space, transformed into the central command for galactic temporal defense strategies. Its ancient crystalline matrix, now amplified by corporate technology, became the anchor of a vast defensive network. An unprecedented unity spread through the galaxy, born not of ambition, but of sheer, unadulterated terror. The galaxy prepared for a war against time itself, a war that would redefine its very existence. At the furthest edge of galactic space, in a star system long marked as uninhabited, the dead future made its grand entrance. A massive, complex, paradoxical echo tore through the fabric of reality, not manifesting as a ship or a creature, but as a violent unraveling of spacetime itself. Preliminary defense outposts, hastily constructed, dissolved in an instant, their energy signatures flickering out of existence. The local star began to phase in and out, its light distorting, threatening to unravel the entire system. From the heart of the temporal breach, a monstrous, fragmented entity coalesced, a collection of impossible geometries and spectral forms, a horrifying monument to the dead timeline's catastrophic end. Panic rippled through the newly formed galactic defense perimeter as the true, visceral horror of the echoes became undeniable. The enemy was here, and it threatened to erase everything. The Monastery of the Quiet Mind pulsed with an intensity never before witnessed. From its central chamber, the monks, now supported by layers of galactic technology, launched a massive, coordinated psionic projection. A wave of pure mental energy lashed out across the void, a psychic net attempting to contain the monstrous echo and stabilize the tearing reality. Simultaneously, the combined galactic fleet, a mosaic of diverse species fighting as one, engaged the manifestation. Their newly adapted temporal weaponry fired streams of chronal energy, attempting to destabilize the echo's impossible form. Explosions of warped light and reality-bending effects tore through space, as psychic power met technological might in a desperate, unified struggle. This was the war for reality itself, a climactic confrontation where the very existence of the universe hung in a fragile, desperate balance. The maelstrom had subsided, leaving behind a scarred emptiness where a vibrant star system once pulsed with nascent life. The massive paradoxical echo, a grotesque manifestation of a dead reality, was shattered. Its fragments, like shards of impossible glass, dissipated into the void, leaving lingering temporal distortions that would take centuries to mend. Yet victory had a bitter taste. The combined fleets of the Galactic Union, though ultimately triumphant, bore the heavy marks of this unprecedented conflict. Dozens of vessels, once shining bastions of their respective species, hung as broken husks, their crews lost to the unraveling reality. Within the Monastery of the Quiet Mind, the engineered psychics, the echo hunters themselves, were severely weakened, their forms frail from the immense psychic exertion. This was not the end of the war, merely the end of one brutal engagement, a stark reminder that the cost of preserving reality was measured in shattered worlds and countless lives. Despite the profound exhaustion, the Monastery of the Quiet Mind pulsed with an unyielding resilience. The monks, though visibly frail, immediately began the arduous process of recovery, their connection to the crystalline matrix reestablishing a faint rhythmic hum. There was no pause, no moment for true rest, only the silent, resolute preparation for the next inevitable threat. With the newly integrated galactic aid, the monastery stood not just as a sanctuary but as an enhanced fortress, its ancient systems now interwoven with advanced temporal dampeners and predictive analytics provided by its new allies. It was a beacon of defiance in the vast, silent void, an eternal guardian whose spirit, though tested, remained unbroken. The profound revelation and the subsequent battle had irrevocably reshaped the Galactic Union. No longer was it a loose confederation of squabbling empires. It was a unified front, bound by the chilling truth of an existential threat. A new galactic council chamber, now featuring an unprecedented diversity of species, became the nexus for a singular, overarching priority: temporal defense. Vast resources were reallocated, not for expansion or conquest, but for research into paradox mitigation, for the development of new temporal weaponry, and, crucially, for the unwavering support of the Monastery of the Quiet Mind. The monastery, once a forgotten enigma, now sat at the very heart of all strategic maps, a silent constant in a galaxy forever transformed. For the corporate unit that had initially sought to exploit the monastery, the shift was absolute, a complete metamorphosis of purpose. Their stealth ship, once a tool of espionage, was repurposed into a temporal anomaly detection platform. Their advanced analytical minds, once bent on corporate advantage, were now dedicated to the intricate science of chronoscape dynamics and echo prediction. They were no longer spies, no longer driven by profit or corporate rivalry. They were vital components of the galactic temporal defense network, working tirelessly alongside the monks, their technology and strategic acumen dedicated to the singular, all-consuming purpose of safeguarding reality itself. They had found a greater calling, a profound meaning in the cosmic struggle. Yet, even with the galaxy united, the war was far from over. From the heart of the Monastery of the Quiet Mind, the engineered psychics maintained their eternal vigil. Their consciousnesses, like ethereal probes, continued to project into the chaotic chronoscape, hunting the insidious echoes that still flickered at the edges of reality. The remnants of the dead timeline, though pushed back, were a persistent spectral wound, a constant reminder of the unending conflict. This was the new normal, a perpetual struggle against an enemy that defied conventional understanding. The galaxy would never again be truly at peace, but in the combined might of the Echo Hunters and their unexpected allies, it had found a chance to endure, to fight, and to stand as one against the oblivion of a dead future.